I can get you on tape. Okay. You are Joanne Flower.
That's
I'm
right.
Sarah Tucker. This is an interview that is part of the Washburn, Kansas Legislative Women Oral History Project. This is February 1st, 1991. You are a representative from the 47th District.
That's right.
Jefferson County.
And part of Leavenworth County.
And part of Leavenworth County. You are a Republican.
That's right.
Can you tell me, well, first of all, how long have you served?
This is beginning of my second term.
Beginning of your second term. How did you come to be a representative? How did you come to represent your district?
I got involved in politics through my concern for rural health care. My background's in nursing and keeping doctors and clinics and local health departments going in rural communities as a project. And while I didn't work because my children were growing up, I was involved in volunteer activities. And when you needed help, we found we had to have political help sometimes to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And I came in contact with that need and the value of that, and became involved with Nancy Casselbaum and became our county chairman. And then the women there asked me to be president of a newly reorganized Jefferson County Republican Women.
Mm-hmm.
So I came into those two things at the same time. They worked very well together, and which drew me in the political process more. My husband had been active. He had sort of dropped out as we moved from another locality. And then I became more active, and we had an incumbent who there was a lot of dissatisfaction with him, and I went out to recruit somebody to run. I came home with myself. A lot of various people that I thought would make good candidates could not run for various reasons, or would not. Would say, if you will run, I'll support you. And then, somebody was always suggesting this, I just didn't put too much in it. But I had started back to Washburn taking political science courses just to get background that people assumed since I was active I already had, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I started out as about a junior because I had a degree in nursing. But just found that was good, did that because it was good for me and because I enjoyed it. And it gave me people to talk politics with and things. Because they were taking similar courses. It was a very valuable experience. Took some and as I realized communication was the essence of politics, I began to take some communication work. And had a chance to more or less plan and guide a friend's campaign for county commissioner, and she became the Jefferson County's first woman county commissioner, unsuited a two-term male incumbent. So got a little experience. My first election, I had a primary, which gave me more experience, and then the general. So
Here you are.
Here I am. In a role I really never planned for myself.
Why'd you win?
Well, I think the person had been there 12 years. And had never really had an aggressive campaign. Had never been challenged by somebody who had an organized campaign and was at the right time in their life, and things were right. He was in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
The public perception, at least, of him had changed. And it just basically, you really need a well-organized, serious challenge. It could have been unseated by 4, probably, but everything came together at the right time. My last child was a senior in high school. I was free and wanted to give time to it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he just never had that kind of campaign before against him. And by the time he realized he was in trouble, I think it was too late. Of course, it's a Republican district, but
So, were there any issues you felt were important in the campaign?
I ran my campaign on I will be hardworking, I will be fair, I'll be honest, and I'll be responsible and financially judicious. I don't know. I've handled my taxes, your tax dollars, like I would my own.
Mm-hmm.
I never made specific promises as to any program or anything of that type. It wasn't a negative campaign. We put out one mailing calling him to account for a couple of votes. But basically it was a positive campaign. I care about you, and I'm one of you, and I have older parents, I have young children, we have a small business, we have a farm, I'm interested in health care, I've done volunteer work with senior citizens. You know, basically I represent your interests, and I'll work at it full time.
And I take it your opponent was seen as not.
Must have been.
Must have been. Okay. Would you tell me a little bit more about the makeup of your district? What its character is, what's important to it?
It's an interesting district. I say I'm a rural legislator because I haven't got a town of 1,200. They're all smaller. I have 9 small towns. I have lake developments. I have farms. But in the close proximity to Topeka, Lawrence, and Kansas City, I have many, many commuters. A lot of people who work to supplement farm income, and some who've never been farmers have moved there from other areas because they like the life in the rural setting. They like the small towns, they like the small schools, they can own a few acres for a minimum amount of money. There is now a lake. Some of them like the lake, the proximity to the lake, and yet they have all the resources of the large towns available to them. And that for aging people, it's a more secure environment. They feel more safe. A lot of them come back there from other places and in their retirement years.
And so issues would be, of course, money, security.
It's complex.
It's complex.
I deal with ag issues and aging issues and health issues. But I also have quite a number of labor union members, and I have quite a number of state employees because of my close proximity to the capital. So I really have a diverse group. You can't say that I can concentrate on any group as primarily the ones I'm there, even though I said I'm rural because that I am rural. My schools are rural, my towns are rural, all that. But it's just very diverse.
That's fascinating. Especially when you first got here, but since this is not that long distance after it, how would you describe the setup in the Kansas State Legislature when you got here?
Confusing. Even though I had some exposure to it, I found it just difficult to catch on to. At first you feel like you're running along beside a fast-moving train and you're trying to jump on, and everybody else seems to be on and know where they're going.
I like
But
that.
about the third week, you kind of things settle in. And I'm still learning about the process, but the people who've been here a long time said you always are learning.
What committees did you ask for? What committees did you get? And what are you on now?
I asked for agriculture and small business, I think for reasons I've explained, and public health and welfare for the same reasons. And I think I asked for tax or education, which I realize not many freshmen, a few do. But I was put on insurance. I think now, probably because of the medical malpractice issue we had, the cost of malpractice insurance for physicians, where rural communities lose them first, and the state was losing physicians, and now the one we're dealing with on the cost of health insurance. That must have been the thinking. And so I came back, I asked for the same 3 committees. I think you really get your feet on the ground and get involved. And you probably I felt like I need to bring that experience back to the same committees, especially in insurance committee. We lost like 4 of the Republican members for one reason or another. And I just couldn't see leaving our ranking minority person there with everybody else new.
How do you get things done? How much are you getting done as a fairly new member of the legislature? What
Do
is
you
your
mean
style?
with the constituents, or you mean as far as state policy, or?
Well, actually, I was kind of
There's
interested
2 facets
see
to that,
which
you
way
know.
you read that. So tell me both.
Well, probably I'm still concentrating more on my constituents, and I think that's probably a wise priority. And Oh, I have 4 bills being drafted. And last year I think I had 1. You co-sponsor others, but I mean that you're the primary mover and shaker on.
Would you tell me what they are and what the one was last year?
Last year it had to do with raising the classification of a crime for battery of an employee of a corrections institution from a misdemeanor to a felony, because a constituent, just happened to be a woman, called me and she'd been battered as a corrections officer. We used to say guard, but they say corrections officer. And found out it was a misdemeanor, which simply meant that they would be confined for a few days or put in a disciplinary, and the county attorney doesn't prosecute because he has a bunch of felonies. And so they really had no threat. By moving it to a felony, it's a possibility of added time to their sentence. And the people who are employed there perceive this as being much more protecting. So it expanded to all the employees there, teachers, plumbers, electricians. And so this year I'm asking to add to that jailers and parole officers, probation officers. Anybody who goes unarmed, undefended, and deals with criminals or people incarcerated or formerly incarcerated and feels like they're in a threatened situation. Those 2 groups asked to be included on the bill last time, and I said, let's don't jeopardize it, but we'll try to add you in the future. That's one bill.
Okay.
Second one is a bottle bill, which I understand was the most heavily lobbied and disputed issue in 1984. I hope perceptions changed. And another one is a tire bill. And I've never presented myself as an environmentalist. Really a constituent kind of started me on them, and then my questionnaire, over 60% of people thought we should have a bottle bill of the people that responded. So I've got to realize there's more public demand out there than I realized. And that's my job, is to respond. So we'll see if that's shared around the state. The tire bill is to require city and county and state government employees to buy retread tires. Buy their second set of tires. Haven't got the research completed on it. It's just a draft request. The bill's not anyways near ready, but and the third one's on oil recycling. It's the same thing. We really don't have facilities in the state in place. It may come across as a resolution rather than a bill this time. So forth. So I'm starting off differently. And I'm sure I'll be water over my head on the bottle bill. It's very heavily opposed by strong factions, but I found out one of the senators, Winter's working on it too. In fact, he was ahead of me, so we may basically run the same bill.
Which gets me to the other possible focus of the question. How are you getting things done on the floor of the House? What is your style? How are you finding you can accomplish things?
I don't have much style yet, being a beginner. Basically, I go to probably first the other Leavenworth County delegates and try to enlist their support first. As the prison bill was something, of course, they were interested in co-sponsoring and helped me with, because these were their constituents too. So I would just simply have to find out. I see people that have similar interests, try to get them to co-sponsor, so then they try to influence. I haven't done a lot of this, so I'm still learning on that. Work through other people who are interested.
Okay.
See that you have support. Has to get out of the committee first.
Complex thing. Do you have a mentor? Do you want a mentor? Do you have a support group?
I wish I had a mentor last year, and I suggested that to our party leadership down here, and the freshmen do have mentors. You always need a mentor, and I think that we missed something that we should have had. Would have been very helpful to me.
Okay. Do you work with women here any differently than men? Is there any advantage or disadvantage, or are you able to get support from women differently?
I don't think that that's a factor in my case. You must remember the area I come from. I represent farmers, labor union members. There's never been a woman in this position before. And I basically feel I'm a legislator who happens to be a woman, and that's where I want to.
Okay.
You didn't see me in the Iron Sunflower movement or anything like that. Although women are a support to each other, there's no doubt about it. I don't think that I'm a militant feminist, ardent feminist maybe, but I play that down.
Okay.
I stood in a lot of barnyards and on a lot of truck running boards, and I go to crop day and spend the whole day out in the hot sun with the farmers on crop tours and things to get them to see me as a person who is not here for women's issues. It might be in the beginning, if health could be a women's issue, that I started, and I question that it really is. But, so, like I said, I'm a legislator who happens to be a woman as far as I'm concerned, and that's really the way I want to keep it.
Do you have a perspective on the status, the role of women in the legislature? A sense of where you're
Obviously, it's increasing. We're now 26.4%. Of course, women are becoming more active in all aspects of society. It's only natural that more of them become legislators. Some of them are there because they have, quote unquote, women's causes. I feel very, very strongly on one issue. In our case, we couldn't afford for the breadwinner to be down here. I know there's some that's not a factor. And so women will be more because, like I was at home with the children, and many times women still come visit both the men. But they're just becoming better qualified and more involved too. So I would look for it to keep growing. I don't know what point it won't, that we get 49 to 50% maybe.
It'll be interesting.
And by that time, I'm not sure anything can be done about it. I don't know. Nothing would surprise me. I just think it'll keep increasing.
That's fascinating. So, you got reelected.
Yes.
How would you compare re-election to first election? How was it different?
Well, it was easier in that I had the income, but I had the name recognition. I had the goodwill of a lot of people. I'd say name recognition and get people to recognize me as a person who would represent them fairly and conscientiously. Many of them knew me as the nurse and the county volunteer or some other hat, but to get them to see me as a legislator probably. And I didn't have a primary, so I had one campaign instead of two. And I wasn't stressful. I won by 900 votes the first election when I challenged the long-term incumbent. And this time it was closer to 2,000. So I never felt like I was truly in trouble. Maybe because I felt like I was too new to get this tax problem blamed on me, whether what I said was reasonable, or being the kind of district I am, might not have been as badly hurt by property taxes. Some were. Our own business was. It was a small business with no inventory. I mean, we caught it right between the eyes. And maybe that's why, too. I don't know. And I work hard at keeping goodwill up. I go to lots of parades and lots of church suppers and public. Every little town has certain functions, and I make just as many of those as I can make, so that I want to be accessible, and I think people have felt I was, and that I care about what's on their minds.
What future do you see for yourself in the legislature? What do you want to do the next couple of terms, couple of years?
Oh my. Well, I'm not sure. If each year I can be more effective and accomplish more, I'd like to continue. If I feel like that I'm not doing that, it's not really worth the sacrifice that I make with the family and friends to do it. And a lot will depend on if the people want you back. You know, I'm up for review every 2 years. But if I'm here, I'll become more effective and play more role in what happens. I don't care to be down here and be a give up on law. On the other hand, I don't entertain any ideas about being speaker or governor or any of those things. Just to do what I'm doing better each time.
But you would see yourself able to move into a leadership position if you stayed and got seniority? Would you like to do that?
I think that's something that I would have to see as it developed.
Well, talking a little bit about personal background. Before we started recording, you said you saw yourself as a maverick. So let me ask you, what is your childhood background? Where you come from, what your parents were like, what role models you had?
My father was a pharmacist, owner of a small town drugstore in a town, 3,000. And my mother...
Was this a Kansas town?
Hugoton, southwest Kansas.
Okay.
Very agricultural, very rural. My mother had taught school as a young woman, but when she married, she stayed home. And she was always there, and we always had 3 square meals a day, and very traditional type role. And she was a little shy, too. She'd be miserable watching me do what I do now, and being vulnerable and subject to criticism, and traveling to meetings by myself, and just talking to everybody, you know. That always got to bother her anyway, because I was outgoing and worked in the drugstore and talked to people she had no idea I knew. Yeah, I knew, you know, and well, she would fear for me being hurt, I'm sure. And she just really likes it being on the timid side, being almost Victorian in her upbringing. This is a very uncharacteristic role. I don't think any woman in my family has ever done anything like this. I see 1 or 2 that certainly have the potential, had the time been different. Now, I've had 3 male legislators in my ancestors, but they're all male.
Tell me about them.
2 of them I don't know much about. I just happened to read obituaries or something that mentioned they served and they were back east. But I had an uncle who preceded me here in the Kansas legislature. He was here in the 50s, on the other side of the aisle, from Morton County.
Morton County.
And he was here 8 years. Oh, he would have a terrible time with me being Republican. In fact, his widow, when I had to raise money first time, I went back where I was back there visiting my father, so I just asked a few people, and I found out a lot of people were willing to back me. And some of the relatives, and this aunt said, well, I think Daddy would want me to give you some money, even if you are a Republican. But I want you to know I've never, ever given a Republican any money before.
That's quite a testimony.
Well,
then.
and they sort of trusted me that this district was rural and that district was rural, and they'd known me virtually. Well, we left that area when I was almost 40, you know. So I've been around a long time, and a lot of it was just that we believe in you, and that we think you're honest and caring, and that you'll look out for Kansas. And they sent money to this next campaign too. But
why are you a Republican?
that's interesting. I haven't always been. My mother's a Republican, my father's a Democrat, but she was the retiring person. My dad was quiet. He was never active like his brother. And when I was a wage earner, when I was a nurse, I was a Democrat. But I never was really active. I never really followed. Then when I married the county Republican Central Committee chairman. And I was going to all these functions and hauling the candidates around. And I had changed roles. I mean, we were farmers, and I had a different perspective on things, and basically hadn't ever been involved. I was becoming involved, and so it just was better to be a Republican. I think I'm slightly more Republican in philosophy, but that's a label I really I'm not preoccupied with.
What is it in the Republican philosophy then that is most what you agree with?
Well, probably I still feel the best thing we can do for people is provide an economy that will employ them and enable people to live as well as they can live and feel like they did it themselves because they work and they have these opportunities, and then, you know, we don't need quite so many social programs. We have to have social programs, of course. But basically, I prefer a hand up to a handout.
Okay.
Is that all right? But I realize that that's not something you can draw the line when I say I tend to that philosophy more. Maybe that's a basic difference.
What was your education? You say you're a nurse, so clearly you were educated as a nurse.
Well, I went to a women's college in Denver, 2-year college.
Colorado
Women's college. Which was really a good experience for a person from a small town, and they really did a lot to encourage each person to develop personally as well as academically. And I had this was the era where you were a secretary, a nurse, or a teacher, remember? And I had been in a nurse's aid program as a senior scout in high school, and did some nurse's aid work, and sort of had a feeling for this. And one doctor then asked me to come work in his office one time when his nurse got sick, and he encouraged me, and I think coming from a background of teachers and ministers and farmers, and caring has been a family characteristic, I guess. Maybe that's not unique at all, but anyway, I decided I was going to take a pre-nursing course, and I had a counselor who said, well, I said to her, I said, you know, I don't much want to go to school, KU, K-State, CU. I've been these places. I'd kind of like to do something different. And I was thinking about Johns Hopkins. She just said, oh, I think that's wonderful. You know, and as she'd had some experience, she had affiliated there for a short course one time. And basically, I applied and took the test and got in. So I got on the plane in Garden City and went 1,500 miles. So that was sort of unusual, I guess. Two, I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get the best that I can get. And of course, that opened up so many. I would never travel back there and do all the things I did in that area, because you really feel like you're in the heartbeat there. You're that close to Washington. And the beach was a different experience, and all the history. I love the history and the battlefields. And went to New York City a few times, and it wasn't at all unusual to be in Washington for a Sunday afternoon and visit all things there. I came right back to Western Kansas. Never thought I would, but I basically realized that that's where my roots were. I really wanted to come back to the Midwest. And it being that far away from family is pretty difficult. You miss a lot. Although it was an experience I would not trade for anything. Had I known I'd gone into politics, of course I should have gone to school in Kansas, because I'd know so many more people. But that was the farthest thing from my mind.
So you come back to Kansas, and at that point, did you meet your husband, or did you already know him?
Oh, always known him.
Always known him.
I mean, from elementary school. But I had some career things to do first, and I'd seen him as a friend for a long time. It was quite a while before I went to Dallas and worked a couple of years one time. But I really want to stay in the rural area, so I tried the city one more time. Worked at Baylor.
My goodness.
And decided I didn't really want to stay in that environment.
So you nursed, and eventually you married, and then you stayed home and raised children.
That's right.
And you have how many children?
2.
2 children. So you married, you had 2 children, you stayed home, and as they say, did not work outside the home, okay?
That's right.
How does your husband enjoy your political activities? Is it something he participates in, or?
I think it is hard for him not to be the politician, and for me to be the politician. I think that's been difficult. he jokingly says he will start a Prince Philip Club with the other male spouses, and they will all learn to walk 2 steps behind the Queen with their head slightly bowed. But it's not at all funny when all the mail is for me and all the telephone calls are for me, and when we go out in public, everybody wants to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just pretty difficult. And he was the political activist in the beginning. But I think he likes it too. So, you know, I'm sure I'm a much more interesting person because my world has certainly expanded and I have had to become informed on so many more things. I have meet interesting people to whom I can introduce him, and he's known a lot to whom he introduced me, and that certainly didn't hurt me with his Republican background as I first got involved and became involved in Republican women and the state party and so on. So we have helped each other, but I think it's difficult. And I'm not there, and things don't get done, and men don't like to do the kind of things women do at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sure he has mixed feelings about it.
How do your children feel about this?
They're for it. Our son was already away from home.
Mm-hmm.
Our daughter was leaving, and though now she could use me, I have a...
You are pointing to what looks like a great many babies, but surely
Yeah.
some of these are duplicates.
This one is her not quite 2-year-old, and
Uh-huh.
she had twins in December.
Oh my.
And they're here in Topeka, and there are many times that I'm sure that she would like me to be able to help her. I would like to be able to help her, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
And but she always says, "Mother, you need to do your own thing. So you just hang in there," or something like that. So
Now, living in Jefferson County, I'm assuming you commute? Or
no,
do you
I stay in
you
town
stay
4
in
days a
town
week.
4 days a
4
week.
nights a week. Basically, we did that first so that I would get acquainted.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, a lot of the things, you have much more time to visit with people after 5 and 6 o'clock than you do before in many
Mhm.
instances. And I wasn't wild about traveling at night when I was tired and alone and the weather unpredictable, and in the morning it's just the same thing. I might
Mhm.
drive on ice and snow and things I shouldn't do because you really do have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuse. And it's just, sometimes I have things starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's just much easier to get up already in Topeka and get here than it would be from 45 to 50 minutes out, by the time you come through the traffic. And he was willing to go along with that, so he probably worries less. After all, he can do anything he wants to at home. Nobody questions him. I think he enjoys a little independence himself.
Okay. You mentioned the cost, and there's all different kinds of costs. What, for you, are the costs of this legislative career, for your family, for yourself?
Well, the emotional costs are the choices you make, that you put them second, and you put the groundhog supper at Ozaki or whatever else obligation you may feel. Much of my time is spent going to things and being there, when sometimes I would rather be with them, or they would like for me to. I have a 92-year-old father. I can only visit him when I'm not campaigning or when I'm not in session. And you know that his time's limited.
Mm.
That's hard, because he's very alert. You know, it's not a matter of not knowing whether I'm there or not. And friends, you just don't have the time to spend with your friends that you did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the emotional cost. And basically, you give up library board, historical society, all but basically the local things have to go because now you have this job, and you don't have the time. And sometimes there's a conflict of interest. And the financial costs, it really costs me to serve.
Could you spell that out a little bit?
The financial costs.
Mhm.
Well, what paid $6,000 a year, plus if you figure in the secretary and all that, you know, it goes up. But I have to have clothing. I have to maintain my appearance more. I have to maintain a car. That's the biggie. We had to have a vehicle we didn't have. and gasoline and insurance, and now I've got 60-some thousand miles on it from the start of my campaign, and that's time to begin to, and it needs replacing, and there's certainly no salary to replace that car. So I guess that's when I first realized I was going in the hole. But I mean, clothing and you know, you go to everything, you buy tickets and you buy donations to the raffle, all that we used to call raffles. You donate to almost every local cause. You know, and all these things add up.
If they do.
My first campaign, I had debt when we got through $1,200, which I saved on my legislative file and paid off. And my second campaign, I came out with money in the campaign fund. And a lot of people use that fund for these things. I'm not totally comfortable with that yet, because many people give you money, individuals. This is for your re-election. And now that the records are going back to the county courthouse very easy, I don't know if they would feel like that's legitimate. But I'd so much to think about it.
Tell me about how you do finance a campaign and put together all the people that help you do the work. How do you manage all that?
The people were the easiest thing, because Republican women were a network that I could call upon, and the precinct committee people. And they volunteer to do things. All my mailings are hand addressed by different groups. Each precinct takes a list of the voter registration, and I have people who are willing to sit there and do that. My yard signs I have are 8x4 on plywood and were hand painted by volunteers. And the wood was donated by the lumber yard and the paint by the hardware store, and it was designed by one of my constituents, and we all painted in the backyard forever, and I just put them up again the next year. Basically, the people were there. The money's the problem. I don't come from a district that has ever given well. My husband being involved sometimes never met their quota, you know, for years and years and years. They are not in the habit of financing campaigns. This will be a problem to me if we do it with facts. Because once they began to help you, it got easier. And of course, a lot of them represent, a lot of the membership are my constituents. And basically, this is their way of making a small contribution, but if enough of them do it, then they can help you. So I have mixed feelings about that. Whatever it is, I'll live with it. I hate to give my time and energy to more raising money. Of course, basically, I start through people who have given, who voluntarily gave to me the first time, or I've never put out a general fundraising letter. I have put out a limited number, but I will have to start, and postage going up to 29 cents. And like I said, the demands on my time now, I hate to think I'll have to spend it raising money to run again. But it may come from that.
What do you, as a person, get out of being in the legislature?
Well, I think the challenge. Each day is a challenge. Each day is interesting. Like I said, my world has expanded tremendously. This personally, that's just got to be interesting. Even with the price you pay, that's why. And when a constituent calls me with a problem, and I'm able to help them through it or put them in touch with people who can help them through it, and they are very, and they feel gratified, then I do too, of course. And just like the thing with the prison employees, that meant a lot to them. I don't know what's helped them. I don't know whether they're in any less danger. The attacks have gone up in Lansing, but we're having much more violent population in Lansing because they're transferring the medium and minimum security people out. So it's just sort of the predators have only each other and the employees, but there's their perception that would give them more protection. Things like that. you know, and just helping people through things. That's basically what makes it worthwhile. Or if it's a county health department, or it's the, you know, maybe an organization rather than an individual. You can just help cut the red tape or get them in touch with a person who can help them or explain to them what the situation is and why it can't be changed. And then, of course, the broader public policy things for Kansas, you hope that you're pursuing wise courses.
What big issues, if you could miraculously get some things changed, some issues resolved, what would be your dream for accomplishments out of the Kansas legislature, say, the next 10 years?
10 years? I suppose a fair tax system, whatever that is. And I'm not
Go
sure
to it.
not sure it'll ever exist. What's fair for me, maybe if you pay all the taxes, a lot of people see that as fair.
Mm-hmm.
A healthy economic environment. Mm-hmm. And taking care of our resources. Making sure that we still have clean water and clean air. Soil that's not contaminated. I've never seen myself as an environmentalist, but I think things are really coming to that. A lot of us live here because we like this quality of life. Mm-hmm. And those things can certainly threaten it. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see health care available to everybody, quality health care. And that's a big dream, I know that. And then the rural people, it's going to become, in more remote areas, more and more of a problem.
Mm-hmm. Do you think we can do anything about those issues with a citizen 90-day-a-year legislature?
I'm not sure. Oh, we don't go 90 days. When's the last 90-day session been?
Oh, and a 150-day wrap-up session.
Well, I don't know. Are you talking about a professionalization or?
I'm interested to know how you'd feel about that.
I think it's getting increasingly difficult to come down here and accomplish these things. Of course, I'm looking back on one session only. Mm-hmm. I would look for a 120-day session. But I just don't know. The public perception is that we come down here and waste time and fool around, and that they're paying us a great deal of money, and I think as legislatures go around the country, we're rather low, which will discourage people eventually. Mm-hmm. And many are, not so much as they used to be, that farmers weren't busy in the winter, so they came to the legislature. We're not as seasonal as we used to be. Maybe we need to be here 2 months and go home a month and be back. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. But it's a challenge. It's not going to get any easier. I look for us to be here. Tend to be here longer, not less.
Is there a question I should have been asking you that I haven't? Is there something that someone interested in the experience of being a woman in the Kansas legislature that you'd want to get on the record?
If a woman is interested in being a Kansas legislator, I say go for it.
Why? What's so great about it?
Oh, perhaps because you do become an entity. Maybe they already are, maybe they aren't, but I mean, it's an achievement, a challenge, and opportunities are there that haven't been for women and are becoming more open all the time. We have a woman governor now, we will have a woman speaker, probably in the next 10 years, maybe before. Women have a great deal to contribute, and I think we're less into power games at this point. After we've been in power, we may get that way. I think that we're more apt to be here because of real concerns, not so much for name recognition or power or to play the games, or because we see it as a time to go away for 3 months and have a good time. If that, and that's all in public perception. There's some of that. There's no doubt there's some of that too. but not near the amount that people think there is.
Why do you think it is now possible for so many women to get elected when in the past women were not elected?
Well, they're bringing the experience that it takes with them. They're part of the workforce, they're professionals, they're educated, they're administrators, they're activists. Women just have different things to bring with them. So they're better qualified to do it. And like I said, there are fewer men who are going to be willing to give up their business or their profession or whatever it is and neglect it for 3 to 4 months to come down here. Whether they can or whether it's a matter of choice.
Let's assume that we end up with a 51% female legislature. Do you think it would be changed in any way?
Oh, not perceptibly, no. I'm not the only one down here who feels like that's something to soft pedal.
So it's women getting to do a human job rather than the job changing because women do it rather than men?
Oh, I think that's right, yes. I probably a long time coming up with those words. But
We sure got the message across. Well, thank you very much.